Dear watchers and listeners, I am Marco Hoffmann, the founder of ZentraCast, and today I welcome you to the first ever ZentraCast. Now, what is a ZentraCast? A ZentraCast is, and I wrote it down to be very specific here. So a ZentraCast is a bi-monthly dialogue with some of the most inspiring leaders, like Michel, that reveals the story and the struggle of their alignment of who they are with what they do, what they create in life. Now, let me shortly introduce to you our guest of tonight. So this will be very short because the rest of the evening, Mich will explain us who he is. But I met Michel 6-7 years ago, and I remember a very overly eager and overly confident entrepreneur at that time. Today, Michel is one of the stars of the Luxembourg startup scene. And it looks to me that he walked through some fires himself over the years. And we will definitely talk about that tonight. So Michel does not only want to run a startup, he also wants to leave a positive note on society. And he does that as the managing director of the Kindness Group and CEO of Giftable. Hello, Michel. It is a real great pleasure to have you here tonight. How are you doing?
Thanks. I'm fine. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for all the flowers in the introduction. Obviously, always great to hearing great people like yourself talking about me in that light.
Yeah, no, it's a big pleasure having you. And you know, tonight because it's the first one, so we'll maybe explain that it will really more be about explaining, having a conversation. So. It's not an interview. I have prepared. I told Michel I will prepare one question. I lied. I prepared 5, so I can jump on them if necessary. And I have to have one as a kickoff. So let me kick off with the first one. Michel, how did you feel the first time you created a company?
Oh my God, like the first time we created a company, and I'm very, very thankful for that question. Obviously, you are not only excited, you are not only feeling positive, you're also feeling anxious and you have no idea what's going to happen next. Now, I do believe that I was in luck at the time because I wasn't doing it on my own. We had a team, we were like several friends doing this. So obviously you can always rely on other people as well. And well, given that I did that at a very young age, obviously you don't necessarily see the consequences just yet. You don't necessarily have the obligations that you would carry later on. And I guess you know what I'm talking about. Like you have a family. I haven't started that process yet. So no children. So obviously that makes it easier. But it was exciting. It was also frightening. Lots of nervousness running through your veins, a lot of adrenaline, meeting a lot of great people where you are getting nervous just by meeting them. Like there are so many emotions that are involved in that.
Yeah, actually, that's actually what I wanted to ask next. Is like, what moved you? What moved you that day? What moved you? What really, what made you?
So, yeah, absolutely. So it's a really funny story actually, because ultimately, although we are talking about the company, it's not like the first time that I've done something, right? And this really comes down to, well, being an entrepreneur, being willing to take a risk and just launching something and starting something, whether this is a movement, whether this is a company, whether this is, well, you name it, right? And so I basically got asked by the other co-founders of the company if I wanted to join them. And I was like, yeah, like, why not? I mean, we've built the first hackerspace in Luxembourg and I was part of that. And it sort of turned out good, right? So why shouldn't we be able to do that as a company? Now, obviously, this sounds so easy right now because, well, at the time it was so easy. We haven't done market research. We had no idea what we were doing. We were just students, right? We were just running like it was great to call yourself C-level suit whatsoever.
Oh yeah,
but
that's
ultimately,
cool.
but have we really been any C-level at the time? You know what I mean? Like, do you really represent what the title actually says? And so those are a lot of questions that, reflecting back to that today, I can definitely tell you guys that I've been a lot naiver than I am today.
How did that manifested itself, the naivety? What's the difference?
So the naivety, like I have these very concrete examples, especially when it comes to just even collaborating and working together. It was all about no, like I need to be pushing myself as well, and it's not all about it was about yourself, and you wanted to be proving yourself, and you wanted to be proving yourself to everyone, and you wanted to understand the symbols and the norms, and you wanted to be like part of this business community, right? And I'm not saying that I don't want to be part of the business community anymore. I love the business community, right? But it's more about this. Well, right now, I'll just take it more lighthearted. It's like you are a human being and you are nothing more and nothing less than myself. And so that's the eye level that we can talk to each other right now. It's not like, and still there are a lot of people out there in the ecosystem in Luxembourg and also throughout the world that I'm definitely looking up to. And you know that, right? But it's a different kind of conversation. And I was really, really lucky, I believe, that it also was part already prior to that company, that while I was growing up with people that sort of were C-level, that were doing stuff in that atmosphere, that I kind of learned that ultimately behind all those titles, there's always just a human being. And it like just becomes fun over time. And you just know, okay, this is me, this is who I am, like it or leave it.
How did you make it? How could you overcome this make it till you fake it till you make it, like fake the confidence till you are confident? How did you get? Because today I well, at least my humble reading of a human being is that you are not faking your confidence anymore, but I can also say that you did it years ago, and I saw that very much. So what changed?
Well, I mean, you grow up, you go through different phases. I mean, I think we can agree, and I mean, this is open conversation. Tell me if I'm wrong, right? But you and myself and everybody who's listening right now, we are ultimately just a result of all the experiences that we went through over time, right? And so, just like this very conversation, if you would have asked me like 6 years ago, I would have been like, oh my God, it's Marco who's now reaching out, and like we got to do this. And Marco was like this idol, right? And by now you are still Marco, who's that idol who's done it all. But on the other hand side, I consider you a friend. Like I can call you up and we can just have a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And so once you understand that everything we basically see that is represented by another human being is just a guy that actually goes home in the evening, is having dinner with his family, goes to bed, and probably in the morning is getting up, drink a coffee and take a shit. Sorry to call it out like that, but that's exactly what's happening, right? So, I mean, that just gives you like this other way of seeing it. And then to me, it became really sort of important to be not only questioning things, but also to question myself a lot. Like, okay, am I right in what I'm doing right now? Is this the right thing? One of the main things that actually changed this whole perspective at some point was when I got more and more involved in this whole Stoicism. I don't know if you're aware of Stoicism and the Stoics. And knowing that ultimately, well, the only thing you can really control is your own like your own emotions, your own reaction to stuff, but you cannot really influence what's happening all around you. Like if there's a burning platform, let it burn, because probably it's not on your ground anyway, right? And this sounds very egoistic or arrogant, but that's not the case. It's just realizing that ultimately what you are really in control of and what you are not. I don't know, what's your experience?
Oh yeah, well, don't get me start talking about that. I will not stop for the next 2 hours. So yeah, absolutely. You said something which was very interesting, is that we are the sum of our experiences. I would like to give a deeper reflection on that. We are the sum of of the interpretations of our experiences, because and as an entrepreneur, I think that's so important. It's like you have these entrepreneurs who it's so funny. Like all the entrepreneurs only talk about the good stuff. They only talk about what happened right, and so on. And I'm one of them. I was one of them. I can talk about my failures with a big pleasure these days. But what I want to ask here is like, when did you stop faking it?
So I like, there's not this one specific moment where I say, like, this is stopping to fake it. I must admit, on the other hand side, I'm not necessarily saying that I actually faked it at any point. It's just like you grow into confidence, right? Like this whole fake it till you make it movement, ultimately, even today, if somebody comes up to me and says like, yeah, I got to fake it until I make it, so push up my numbers, etc. No, just be true to yourself. Just say, okay, this is what I've achieved. This is what we're doing. And now from there, people will actually start listening to you and they will respect you for that. Like you're going to be honest with them and you're going to be open about it. I'm not going to lie to you, Marco. I had evenings like over the past couple of years where I was having a pizza by myself. I could have gone home, right? I would not have been alone, but that I went out having a pizza by myself, complaining to a friend or to several friends, the close ones, the ones that actually understand me, that get me, that have been supporting me around this whole journey, writing a text saying, what a crappy week and no one to talk to, sending a photo of an empty chair sitting opposite of me. Like that's the culture that we're living in, right? You cannot tell people about your failures because they will consider you a failure. But ultimately, it's part, as we said, it's you are being the result out of the experiences, right? And so,
yes, absolutely. I really think it's over time and over like myself over with aging and with I don't know, with working on myself, because that's what drives my life. I came to understand deeply that it is for me really about my interpretation of it. So that's why I love to talk about interpretation. That's why I love to talk about, like, yeah, we can talk about my failures here, but they were not failures for me. So they made me who I am today.
But you see, there is a very interesting. I have a very interesting point that I actually want to put out, sort of like a disclaimer to this video as well, if you'd allow me to do so. So
absolutely.
I was thinking and talking to some people on authenticity only recently, basically. And so there was this point like where the discussion came to a point of like, when did authenticity actually stop? And so that got me thinking and thinking and thinking. I did some research on the topic, right? And so I came across this theory, call it probably even evidence to this. The whole authenticity part actually stopped with YouTube. And here's why. Let me give you an idea as to why I'm saying this. Like, we are recording this session right now, right? And being authentic ultimately means being true to yourself, right? And being who you are and being confident with that and being fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we are recording this today in 2021, and this video is going to be online still in 10 years' time, the person who's going to watch this video in 10 years' time will take it as being authentic on that day 10 years from now. And ultimately, I'm going to evolve. And where you see there's a lot happening right now is with all the vloggers that are out there. The people that are documenting their life on a daily basis. If I'm going back watching a video from, I don't know, Casey Neistat, for example, who's been vlogging for like 5 years every single day. Like, the guy evolved. The guy is a different guy today than he was like 5 years ago, right? And I believe that is a very specific moment where authenticity somewhat got flawed or became like not true anymore, because people are not reflecting on, is that still the person that this guy or girl is today?
It's an interesting perspective you're putting out there. I would love to give my one on this, because I think they are authentic. Right now, I am authentic as who I am right now, and we are talking, and I think we are both more on the authentic side than not. And in 10 years, people will read it, because this is now live on YouTube, so it will be yes. Well, at least if YouTube's still around, it will be there. So people will look at it and they will still see that as authentic. And why will they do that? From my perspective, they will see that still as authentic because it is exactly the energy we are putting on into this right now. And that's the authentic energy, and that doesn't change. That doesn't mean that in 10 years I'm somebody else, you are somebody else. I don't know where I am in 10 years, and I'm so happy that I don't know, because before I always wanted to know everything, and that made my life miserable. Now it's like, okay, great. I love this moment. This is a great moment to have an exchange with Michel. So my authenticity is the one I have now, and tomorrow is the one I have then, and so on and so on. Actually, that comes back to what drives me. What drives me is really deepening the logic of who we are, deepening the understanding, the remembering, as I like to call it, of who we are. Now, what did you discover of yourself? Like, if you could name one or two or three things over the years where we would say, okay, that is really something I didn't know 10 years from now.
So one thing that the worst case scenario most likely is never going to hit, or at least you're not pinning the worst case scenario as to the highest what the worst case scenario could actually be, right?
Yeah.
And so thinking about that actually gives you confidence as well, and just tells you like, okay, just go for it. Like if a couple of years back, and you were talking about it, like this fake it till you make it, confidence, whatever, right? You're getting up on stage and you're like afraid and you're like, oh my God, what are people talking or thinking about you, right? Today I'm just like I'm this 1.88 m guy, right? Like weighing 150 kilograms, 115 kilograms. Like who's gonna take me on, right? Like what's the worst thing that could happen? Like they could come up and they could prove me wrong and they could like just literally show me how it's really done, right? Like I'm literally just this one guy coming in and saying, okay, this is what I believe. This is who I am. This is what I do, right? And I think it's interesting because ultimately it's also the actions that you're bringing to the table that are actually defining you as well. You can talk like a big game, right? But ultimately, can you prove that you're able to actually doing that and like going through with it? And to me, honestly, like this was one of the biggest points that I had to prove not only for other people, but especially for myself, was when this COVID pandemic hit. Honestly speaking, I could just easily have said, okay, guys, like I'm done. I have no idea what's going to happen next. Like, and I can go into that story and I can give you like the quick rundown details on this, right? So here I am launching a new company, 2019. Everything's rosy. Now I know how it's done, right? I've been doing it for 5 years before. I got slapped in the face over and over and over again. Like, and I always got up. Somehow we managed to, like, as you know, what the end of the story is, right? Like we sort of had done the life cycle of a company, right? We've done that. Now I know what needs to be done, and now I know the steps. It's gonna be a walk in the park. And so we did, and so we did all of that. We did all of that. And then there is life and there is a freaking global pandemic, right? And so I just did all the steps that would have been required for the next 3 weeks. We raised the money. I hired a team of 8 people. Now there is a global pandemic. 8 people are coming to me. I have them on a payroll. And oh my God, investors say, no, we are retracting from the deal. Like that's literally me sitting there with 7K left in the bank and 8 people to pay at the end of the month. That's when perseverance sits. That's like, are you being true to yourself? Do you know about the hard thing about hard things? Are you that kind of guy who actually goes through with it? And like, to me, I remember specifically sitting in the office telling myself like, okay, this is it. Like, this is where you actually prove that you're able to pull this off. And it just deepens it, right? It's just like, again, it's an experience. And I went through that experience, like, all in, hitting it hard, like 16, 17 hours a day, basically from 5 in the morning until 12 a.m., 1 a.m. in the morning again, right? I literally at some point in the office sat to some other people that were running around, although that we had COVID. I was like, I don't even know why I'm going home anymore. Like, we have a shower in the office. Like, why am I doing this, right? And knowing that I've been doing that for months and months and months on end, like, I'm not afraid of anything hitting me right now. Like, we went through a global pandemic. Like, how worse can it go, right? Seriously.
don't jinx it. But what I hear you is it's really it's beautiful. And I talked about the overly confident young entrepreneur. I hear him again, but I hear him totally differently now. It's real confidence. It's real confidence with the little naivety, as you just said, that now I saw it all. Well, we know that we never see it all. And we know that the next one will hit us hard again, and we don't know what it is.
But knowing that there is obviously some naivety in that, and that obviously there can always be something worse, right? I'm getting older as well, and I can get sick, and I can, like, whatever, right? Everything can happen. Anything can happen. But ultimately, just going to the point exactly of saying, okay, guys, like, I know it's naive. Nobody knows what the future is going to hold. But, like, throwing yourself completely in there and just accepting, like, being acceptant and having the acceptance where you just say, okay, it's fine. Like, it will be fine one way or the other, right? there's this saying where in the end it will be fine. If it's not fine, it's not the end, right? Like we can go all quotey on this, but ultimately it's true. It has some truth to it.
Let me give you a quote which actually was very important in very early times of my career. Was a quote from Dale Carnegie: "Is accept the worst that can happen and make sure that it will never happen." And I said this phrase all over and over again because like I accept it as like because it was not a walk in the park for me the way you do. I really see you as a born entrepreneur. So you have these different archetypes. So you're an entrepreneur. You're ready to take risk. You strive on risk. You don't give me the impression of being like anesthetized by risk.
Or you know how I always say, right?
Or what is the real story? Tell me all.
you know how I always say, right? Like since being an entrepreneur, I sleep like a baby. I wake up like every 3 hours and cry. So that's like it holds true, right? I mean, we all have, and nobody should actually come up and say, no, it all went smooth and all's great. No, like live in acceptance. Tell me the real story. Tell me the lonely night that you were lying on your bed saying, okay, oh my God, like how is this gonna end? Like what's next? Oh my God.
Let's go there. Tell me the loneliest night. Not girl intended. Huh? So not loneliest night.
So this is going to like be very, very personal. And I'm not like I shit you not on this. So I really like judge me on it. I don't really care, but I'm not going to drop names or anything. But so we had the global pandemic, right? Like, and this is just talking about the recent events, because ultimately that's really what, to a certain extent, is still the closest by with me, right? So we went through the global pandemic. Someone that I deeply love, and I'm talking about love. I'm not talking about someone that I generally just care about. No, someone that I deeply love calls me up while I'm sitting in the office saying, I'm sick. I just got a diagnosis. I have cancer. And there you sit and you're like, fuck, we are going through a global pandemic. And now we have this, right? Like, cope with that, right? And then you're sitting there at night and you're like, okay, this is all getting way out of hand. And this is too much. This is literally too much. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you realize, and again, I'm like this very, very private person. I don't have like a lot of like, and this is again so ridiculous because I do like to believe that I'm a really likable person and that I like get around with everyone, but I really have these close friends. Like there are like a handful of close friends that I can talk at like any given moment, and I know that, right? And they know that on the other hand side too. And you know how the saying goes: your network's your net worth, blah blah blah. That's not the case on this side. It's really like close friends. I know that I can call them at any given moment. And so knowing that you have that backup, even when it comes to people that you would actually call, that you actually love, that are being sick, and you don't know what's going to be next. You call those guys up crying on the phone saying, listen, I don't know what's next. I'm lost. I remember specifically sitting in the car calling up this one guy. You know him, by the way. Calling this guy up. I did nothing but cry. I was like, okay, I'm fucked. I don't know what's next. And then you just have like a chat. Like we are currently having a chat, right? And he makes you realize, and now ultimately it is on you, but he tells you and reinforces the idea that you actually have what it takes, right? So this is also part of it. Like it's not on me. You can call me a leader, you can call me the boss, you can call me whatever, right? But ultimately it's also the people that are around you that actually form and make you or put you in the position of a leader, right? And you know that you're responsible for that kind of tribe. Whether this is your team, whether these are your friends, whether this is whatever, right? And so, yeah, you can do that for 10 people. You can do that for 50 people. I chose to be more restricted and have my 5 guys around me and girls around me that I specifically tell you I love them, right? Mm-hmm. And so that helps. And then also in those discussions, you all of a sudden see other points of view and you're thinking about this and you're like, okay, where am I going wrong? Because you are wrong. Admit you are wrong. This is wrong. Now what's next? And try and figure that out. And then go read and like question yourself a bit more. Try to get up tomorrow morning and tell yourself, today I'm going to be better than I was yesterday. I think those are like kind of the sort of qualities that all of a sudden you start thinking about, and you're like, okay, this will allow me to make a difference, actually.
Just to understand, so that really happened after in that moment. So you had the call with your friend, and what? How did you manage? How could you get? Because just taking a step back, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I went through some of this stuff too. And then I remember having a similar situation at one moment in time a lot of years ago, where I functioned for a month like a robot. Don't ask me anything what happened during that month. I have no clue, and I couldn't talk to nobody about it. So it was like, and knowing me, you know that I talk to everybody about everything. So it was very difficult. It was like devastating for me. What I want to say is like, what was it? How could you combine? How could you clear the head in the morning to do what you had to do to drive your company? What was it?
Boxes?
What's the thought?
Boxes. It's literally boxes. Like as you just said, you get up and you sort of start to function. It's like, okay, there is like, you have the emotional stuff. There you have like, this is where you need to work. This is what you need to get done. You do know what the consequences of this are. And if you realize all of a sudden also what the responsibilities are, that you are not only fighting for yourself, you're not fighting for that one friend, you're also fighting for 8 families that you need to pay, their children. You need to be looking after their food on the table at the end of the month. You realize that all of a sudden, this is not only about you. You might be the one guy that has the responsibility. Now step up, make the step up, and actually prove, not only to yourself, but prove it to everybody else that you can actually drive this, right? And so I always had that. And to a certain extent, at some point, this switched. And still, it got me back to it. It's like, I always believed that I needed to prove myself to somebody else. And that's not the case. I don't need to prove myself to anybody, ultimately. It's great to get the recognition. It's great to get the flowers, like in this very introduction that you just did. And I love it. Obviously, I love it. Who doesn't love it to get compliments, right? But it's not what it's all about. And the same holds true for this very company, ultimately. When I decided to launch this company, my first thought in actually coming up with the idea was, how can we build something that is bigger than ourselves, or in that regard, than myself? And just validating that the way that you are doing it right now, like as we've talked in the past about ZentraPreneur and ZentraBox and all that, right? You want to do something where you actually leave legacy, something that actually changed the world for the better. And you don't need it for anybody to later on say, that was Marco doing that. It's like, I made a difference for that guy, and I made a difference for the other guy. And that's what it's all about. And if you like, and probably this sounds so ridiculous, and I need to be like 50 years of age to get the wisdom that I'm probably, again, totally naive and saying this is true, but it holds true. It's something that's dear to my heart. Like
it's who you are at the moment.
Exactly. But that's exactly it. But then again, on the other hand side, I'm striving to getting better at that specifically. Like I want to meet a lot of people. I want to talk to a lot of people. I want to understand a lot of people, right? Like yesterday when we agreed, or 2 days ago, when was it, that we agreed on actually doing this? I told you that I'm going to be vulnerable about this. So here's another story for you. When I was in school, and still to this day, by the way, like I had this very conversation a couple of weeks ago at an event. Like since COVID check is now there, we can do events again, which is great, right? So we reconnected with people. And so I'm talking to this guy like for the 3rd or the 4th time. He's in the ecosystem as well. We haven't talked a lot at all before, if not to say like at all, literally, saying, I really appreciate that we actually met. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, why are you saying that? Well, and so here he goes. He says, I actually believed you're an arrogant prick. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And it's not for the first time that I'm getting this, but ultimately, as you said, confidence, arrogance, it goes close by, right? And then on the other hand side, to me, it's also sort of, as I said, I'm a very private person. I have the small circle of friends that I'm really like all in for them, and then reciprocity on that, right? So like, I sort of believe that this arrogance, or even confidence to a certain extent, becomes like the security barrier, where you draw like the line of like, okay, so let's talk. And if we can go deeper, then it becomes interesting. Like layering that. I don't know if you can like imagine what I'm trying to say here, but
absolutely,
it's And then you have the introverts, the extroverts, yeah, extroverts. I don't even know where to put myself on that, because I love going out. Like you see me here, right? I'm talking about this. I can talk about it. There is stuff that I've said in this very thing right here, right now, that people that I'm working with on a daily basis don't even know about. Okay, so sort of it's weird, but it makes me very, very vulnerable as well.
It's really interesting. So what you say is that in essence you are approaching people differently. So you have your circle of friends, and your circle of friends are there is all in, all emotions, everything, which is amazing. And then you have other people where you have different levels of all in. Actually, this is how most of people are functioning, and I hope that most of people have this layer of deep vulnerability, because it's important that we can voice what has to be voiced. Now, a question to you, because you brought it up, so I have to push you a little bit.
Dig deep.
How much do you think it supports you of holding back to these people? Now, I don't say that you have to tell everything to everybody, but vulnerability is not about speaking. Vulnerability for me is about being absolutely yourself when you talk to people. So how much is it helping you on your path to hold yourself back?
So you see, again, this comes down to, like, I'm always the same guy, right? I can talk to you the way I'm talking to you right now. We can obviously have a discussion, and this goes in a different way of communicating. We can have a glass of wine or coffee with that, right? So it's a different setting than this very specific case right here. But so I obviously don't have to tell everyone everything that's going on, right? And so this is the level of trust to a certain extent. It builds over time.
That makes totally sense.
And I mean, being authentic to me in this very specific thing is that, well, I do know that I have barriers, and I do know that to a certain extent I need to still prove that I'm actually that kind of guy that I'm saying that I am. But on the other hand side, like, you either agree with me on that or you don't. Like, I literally don't care, right? I do have those people around me that actually see me for who I am, and who are supporting me in who I am. And I'm telling you, there are also the guys that are close in that friendship list, right, that are telling me that you're, like, they're coming up to me and they say, you're wrong. And that hurts. That's like, oh my God, like, if you are saying it and you know what I've been through or what I've done, etc., that gives you like this, okay, oh my God, like, let's stop for a second. Let's reflect. Let's see, okay, is like, what's going on there, right? And we can have like completely different point of views if we're on stage with whomever, right? And if they're saying something and I disagree with them, I can still go back and think about it. But I might not actually reach out and say, like, hey, okay, like, you were right. I can do that, right? But like, it's not going to go deeper and not explaining as to what was happening, why I'm thinking that way, and why I believe that X, Y, Z, right? And so there is still, and again, I'm still rather young, so saying still, but there's obviously insecurity. And I think that a lot of people are insecure by their thoughts, what their belief systems are, etc., and finding those roots as to where you can find the solutions or find answers helps a lot. And to me, that was, like, we were talking about stoicism, we are talking about the friend cycles. This is also, like, I'm invited to a couple of philosophical nights where we do like readings, and then we talk about the readings and like what people think, and it just helps broaden the horizon by like tenfold, right? And I love hanging around those people, although I'm not sharing like my whole life, and they all are not, right? But we are sharing this. Okay, how can we solve this? Like, how do you
share the vulnerability? That's what I was getting at. Huh? So it's as I said, I have people with whom we are sharing very vulnerable on a lot of things. We will not share on everything, which is totally not necessary. But it's about, and that's quite a new concept, something like 5 years old, more or less, where when Brené Brown started to really push this forward. I don't know if you know the lady, but she is the lady who really made vulnerability strength rather than a problem. And so it is these days something which we can use as our strength. I use it my whole life, just to talk about myself. My whole life, I saw that as a challenge for me. because I said, okay, well, you always want to talk deep, you always want to talk philosophical and so on. Well, you know me, and I said, well, but that's not manly, that's not businesslike, that's not. And only when I understood that that's my biggest strength is that everything goes through me. I can be as I am, and and only when I'm like that, everything flows. So I decided for myself to be like that. So
you see, I'm jumping in on that just real quick, if you allow me.
please, absolutely, I mean, conversation.
So there is this discussion that is going on like several layers, by the way. But you can, like, since we are talking about leadership to a certain extent as well, like what kind of leader do you want to be? What kind of leader do you think you are? Like, how are you leading, right? And you can be like the tough leader and like sort of getting into this other mentality of pushing the needle through, like taking the slaps on the back, right? Or like leading with heart. And I do believe that leading with heart, it's like oftentimes today also wrongly understood, like as if it would represent weakness, while ultimately it should be representing strength. Now, this can like become now a manly discussion. Is this manly or is this not manly or whatever? But I'm like not a big fan of that. I just believe that if you can show that you care, and if you actually take the actions to prove that you care, then the other person, whomever it is, will also understand that, okay, this is a guy that I can trust. He's trustworthy. And like I like there's this whole thing going on. Like, yeah, you can be like the tough leader and like, okay, I'm just gonna be pushing and pushing and pushing and asking and asking and asking. But I think that those kind of leaders should also ask at some point, like, what are you going to give back? Since we were on the quotes, how did JFK call it? Like, don't always ask what you can do for the country. Also, don't always ask what the country can do for you. Also ask what you can do for the country, right?
Absolutely, and leading with heart is the only way how you can lead, because the times and it's like you are not almost generation Z, but like I'm like this old fart. And I remember a time where you did what somebody told you in your company because you just had to do it. But today, and you know that way better than me because you run a company with people, I'm very happy not having people right now employed. It feels good, actually. And you are, you know that you cannot tell them like, do that. Then you will have nothing coming out of them. So it's even from a productivity perspective, it's not working anymore, and that's why the large companies are so struggling to get the good people, because the good people are going to companies like yours, where they can create, where they are left to create, where they have the right to do that. Yeah,
and still, which is it's a really interesting conversation, because even by going down that road of saying, so here's freedom, right? Create. This is what we are here to do. In order to change the world, you have like this vision statement, right? The mission statement. This is what we want to do. Like Google does it, right? Like every Friday you get like off and you can work on whatever your specific project is for yourself.
That's
it's
over.
Great. Okay, well, if it's over now, but still, I mean, it's
like 10 years ago.
You see, I'm stuck in the past, but
no, but still, it's amazing. It's amazing because they changed.
Yeah, but it's all about this create, and still, sometimes you get into discussions where people actually tell you that I'm demotivated. I don't know what to do next. I'm kind of feeling lost even in that process, right? And so I'm sure you are familiar with Simon Sinek, right? So Simon Sinek goes on and says like, yeah, okay, but that's like also the new generation, like going after something for the needed period that it would take in order to get somewhere, and not saying like after 2 months, where's my impact? I'm not creating any impact. I think that also comes down to like how we educate people and like what the like let's call it, as we call it in companies, expectation management as to how life actually works. Like at the time, like since you were talking about it, I didn't understand why a company would take like 6 to 9 or potentially even 12 months to take a decision on actually working with us or not. Like, why? Like, I can take a decision in like a split second. Why can't you? Right? And you just don't get the mechanics, right? And you learn that. And then all of a sudden you realize that, okay, I understand. And now we need not only to do like a slide deck for that, but the decision also needs to go through 6 different hands before somebody actually has the courage to say this is good or this is not good. And I think it comes also down to understanding how and what the, let's say, old, under entre guillemets, the old mechanisms were, and how we are using that shift that is currently happening within not only the workspace but in companies in general, and how we are forming this new world of working. Right? I mean, right now, even more so, it becomes so interesting to see that in a country like Luxembourg, due to this pandemic, like within a year, we advanced technologically speaking, like as if Luxembourg would have evolved over the next 5 to 6 years. So just to ridicule that a bit, like it would have taken us another 5 to 6 years to understand how to scan a QR code, right? Like how ridiculous is that? Like for you, it's the most normal thing to do. To me, it was as well. Now I'm going to the restaurant with my mom today, and she still might have a problem scanning the QR code. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like it's so amazing to me how fast the world is moving and how fast youngsters especially can adapt to that, but don't understand how the old world or the old way of doing things actually still is in place. It's not like from today to tomorrow everything changed, right?
That opens a huge way of conversation, which can go societal and the future of humanity. So I don't know if we are already ready to go down that road. We can, but I have still some questions on the man, on the Michel Hoffmann man. Hoffmann man, that's funny. Okay, Hoffmann. You know. What did you really feel like? What did you have to let go of to become the entrepreneur you are today?
That's a good one. I think a lot of anger needed to get out. A lot of frustrations as well, solving a lot of personal issues to a certain extent, because you need to like find that balance of, okay, I'm okay with this, right? Specifically, again, I think I can share this again without names or any, let's say, sociological roles to put on there. But so I've lost touch with someone that I keep close to my heart as well at some point for like 4 or 5 years. And so, as you know, after we were done with the first company, I got hired in a different. I got hired at a no worries. I got hired at a different company. And so the CEO of that company at some point came to me and he was talking to me about that. Like, and he didn't know, right? He was just like, something's bothering you, and I don't know what it is yet. And we were like talking, like, no, that everything's fine. We're doing great, right? Like, here's the report from last week, right? And so getting more and more personal on the discussions as well. And like, he literally said, you need to get back in touch with that person. And it helped a lot. Like, even today, I'm feeling more confident just because I'm again back in touch with said person. Like, just knowing that, okay, there's once again like another person that you would actually have hope to be being supportive and being there, who wasn't at some point. It helps. It helps. And I'm coming back to like the close friends and to family and to everyone that you have around you. It builds character and it builds strength as well, right? And so there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of questioning as well. And there are probably a lot of questions where you don't necessarily have the answers to. And it might take another 2 or 3 or 5 or 20 years to find those answers. But like figuring it out one by one allows you to just grow. And again, we're talking about the experiences and the result of those experiences.
I always talk about the ever-growing onion, which we take layer by layer, and then when we think we are at the end and there is no onion anymore, whoops, it's growing again.
But you see, the interesting part about the onion example, however, is that I don't think that we need to peel from the inside out. I think that we are growing from the inside, like not from the outside in, but I think that we are growing from the inside out.
Interesting. Can you elaborate more?
Well, so I mean, today I'm the sum of who I am, right? And ultimately, like that I am who I am today, I've grown into this, right? So I'm growing from the inside out. Now, what the onion example would be is like, okay, so I'm peeling the onion to get back inside. Now, is that the right way in actually discovering something to be regrowing again to the outside? Might be, but I do really believe it starts with your core, and it starts with your core beliefs as well. It starts with, okay, what do I believe? What do I think is real?
I see where you're coming from. Uh, from my narrative and the way I explain it, it comes from the outside in, because you see yourself only through the fact that you peel the onion. Because peeling the onion, the layers are our external conditioning, are whatever happened between 3 months and or between our birth and 6 months old, 6 years old. That's where 90% of our programming was done. That's where we were done. We always say we have free will. No, we always do what we ever did, and what somebody told us when we were 3 years old. That's how it is, and that is what I call peeling the onion. Because then, as much as you get off that, and it's like the model I'm talking about is like, and that's why the question about letting go. When you accept and surrender to what is, when you let go of a layer, that's where you see something you never saw about yourself. That's where you really touch something new. It's like I had moments where were very, 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 very tough moments personally for me, where when I really accepted it finally, wow, new worlds opened up. Let me share a story. Last year, I just got my shiny certification as a coach. Even so, I was a coach all the time, but now I had a certification, and I got into the possibility to coach, and I will not say names as you do. So I got asked by friends to coach one of the largest companies, like the C-levels of one of the largest companies in the world in our field, in Europe. Wow, I was so happy. I said, amazing, and then I felt so ready. And then we talked about it and how he coaches and so on. And then he said, yeah, well, we are not coaching. We are the company hires us, so we are coaching the people on their job. I said, okay, explain that further, because for me, coaching is not on the job. For me, coaching is holistic. I cannot coach Michel Hoffmann on the kindness group. I can coach Michel Hoffmann, because Michel Hoffmann is not like he has not like two personalities which are totally this, and so we discussed it for 2 months. Huh? Like, he really wanted to have me, and I really wanted to do it, but I couldn't imagine to betray my way of seeing, my way I wanted to work. And I remember so vividly, somewhere in September, I got up, like in the morning, I do my morning meditation. So I meditated, and after meditation, I said, okay, that's it. I will tell him I will not do it. And it was a simple act. Called him up, told him, sorry, I'm so sorry that we lost 2 months discussing this, but I can't do it. I cannot go beyond my values. But only afterwards, it dawned on me what that meant. For me, that meant that I, for the first time in my life, didn't run for the opportunity, didn't run for the shiny thing, because that was the shiny thing. Having that on my like here, like written, I could have any customer, but I would have not done what I wanted to do. I would again just have done what the opportunity just drove me. Actually, what I did, from my perspective, all my life. And afterwards, a whole new world opened, because then I started to think, okay, how can I position myself? And then that's actually where ZentraPreneur was born, because there I mustered, as I call it, the courage to say, okay, let's go for an own brand. Let's go for an own personal leadership experience. Let's go for a model. It's like, okay, who are you? It's like, before, I was like, who are you doing that? And now it's like, okay, just I don't care. I'm still scared shitless to do it. And I still think it's difficult, but I just do it. And I did.
Can I come back on that? Because there's this one really interesting topic that we haven't touched on just yet.
Oh yeah.
You were talking about values.
Yeah.
So if like honestly, like you are not being born and you just like get this label of like these are your values and these are yours, right? Like what was this flip of a switch moment for you where you actually identified what your values are?
Oh, they changed so much over the last 20 years. I did my first personal development seminar in 1997 with Tony Robbins in Brussels. And I don't know exactly what I wrote there, but it was more about success, money, and everything. It's like it evolves, and it has to evolve. That's knowing who we are is something which evolves, and the values are defining us. And so, yeah, for me today, my values are hanging here. I see them every day. It's crucial. It's crucial. Because it's driving, and these are not values like you cannot do this, you cannot do that. These are big concepts, because we need flexibility. Because life is not like 0 and 1. It's not binary. Life is you have to take the decisions. You have to go into yourself and then take the hard decision, the one or the other way. Like not coaching this company was like, who are you? Crazy. My wife said, you are totally nuts not doing that. And she was right from one perspective. But it was the only right decision for me. But maybe if you coach and you would have done, and you still have done it, it would have been the right one. Doing it would have been the right one for somebody else. So there is no, okay, but that opens another barrel here, talking about what is true and what is truth. But that is my truth, and that's what I had to do. So coming back to your question, when did values become clear for me? The values which are hanging here, I created, actually I know the exact date, the 10th of February on 2020. On a seminar, I went out. I was the last one getting out of this hotel before it was closed for lockdown in March last year. So that's why I know that. It was in Belgium, and they're really representing me. Still, I look at them and I say, okay, will I change? No, okay, I'm fine. This one's most likely 2017 when I decided for myself that the life, or that I will find a way to live and to create what I really want to create, without having any clue at that moment what I wanted to create. That was a little bit of a challenge, but that's where I started to accept that actually. So my first, just saying that, my first core value is spirituality. Now, talking about spirituality is not fun for a lot of people, but it is my first value. Now I can embrace that. I love it, and that's the basis, or one of the basis cores of the model, is linking spirituality with the materialistic, or faith with the materialistic, and understanding that these are not opposites. These are part of the same thing. It's just different.
But you see, I do believe. I like exactly what you just said is one of the things that I was thinking about before joining this very call. Because we are talking, like, I do know a bit about what you're doing, right? And I do know a bit about this in particular, right? Like, we are talking about authentic leadership. We're talking about, like, obviously being authentic also means being able to accept that most likely you are not even in control as to what is currently happening, right? Like, we can have this discussion of, is there a higher being? Is there something that is outside of what we know how to touch and that we can touch, etc., right? And so I do believe that in the other way around, it's not about getting fanatic about something and saying, like, this is the truth, but I do believe it's also really about being open and going down that road and saying, okay, so if I believe this, what does somebody else believe and why? Like, what's happening, right? And so this is something that we see more and more in today's world, that, well, let's call it, people in general are clashing over something where they find disagreement in, although not even knowing or understanding what the opposite party is just currently talking about. And like, how do you want to create, co-create, collaborate, call it whatever you want, if I'm not even able to understand what the other person is currently saying or talking about and not understanding their point of view, right? So
Yeah, or even not accepting, or even not accepting that we're not agreeing. So how I handle that these days, and more I use that phrase, is I say that is my truth. Because, and that comes back to my deepest beliefs, which is that we are all creators of our own reality. And as I'm the own creator of my reality, well, in my truth, that's how it is. In your truth is different. Maybe we find on that specific, we find an agreement, but we don't have to, because we find agreement on other ones. And the challenge of now we're going into big politics, but the challenge of today is that everybody is right, and the other one is doing fake news. And it's like, and that's not only the US, because here in Europe, what happens, and corona brought a lot of good but a lot of bad, and what we see is this incredible, like, black and white thing, which I think we were quite good in Europe, not having it too much, but now it's totally there. It's like, you're vaccinated or you're not vaccinated. You are QAnon, or it's like, it's crazy. You cannot have a different opinion than the other one, and you cannot communicate, because that's the only thing which we'll talk about. So it's like we have 5 fingers, but we only talk about these ones, and that's where we are clashing. But this one's okay. Well, we're great. We love fishing. We love dancing. I don't know what we have in common. Why do we look only at the one stupid fucking thing which is not which divides us?
on the other side,
insane.
I really do hope that reason always somewhat prevails. I
What's
mean, there is obviously sometimes, at least, also there is reason, and like there is an explanation to things, and you can be blinding yourself or be blind for the actual truth that's literally out there, scientifically proven whatsoever, right? So there are, like, again, 2 small differences that need to be made. Like, we can agree or disagree on a subject, in my opinion, but we also cannot just neglect all the facts and just for the sake of it, like, disagreeing or agreeing with something. I mean, there are so many, and to me, this is amazing. Like, what happened over 2020, and probably it was just like this one Pandora's box I've never opened, and I'm really, like, not a big fan of it, but it, like, sort of entertains me to a certain extent. But I was like, as you were saying, like, vaccinated, not vaccinating, all of that, right? But there's, like, this whole sea of conspiracy theories, and we are talking about conspiracy theories. Probably they're right, probably we are wrong, whatever, right? Like, but it's creating cults of, like, I'm like this, and we are like this, and we are against the other thing, right? And it's not like, okay, understanding what's the point, and probably there are very clear explanations as to why things happened or are happening the way they are happening, and people are just not even willing to go the extra mile of understanding as to why that is the case. And that's something that we are seeing more and more, in my opinion. It's just like, so I heard this, but I saw it on YouTube, but I saw it on TikTok. And, like, that's a 30-second video, and that's, like, my attention span, because, again, evolution, right? Like, attention spans are becoming shorter and shorter. And so that's the truth. I saw it on TikTok. It's true. Well, probably it is not, right? Like, probably there are other sources that you should be consulting, reading about it, etc., etc.
You're totally right. Absolutely. Nevertheless, it is the truth at that person at that moment. And taking the kindness group, the kind way is to find a way to still collaborate, to still be in a good relationship, even though my truth is totally opposite of the other one's truth. That's what we're missing. That's what we are missing right now. But okay, now we really are out there.
But honestly, just because you were saying that, and you were giving the example of the 5 fingers before, and it's basically one of the examples that I'm taking for the kindness group as well, right? Like I have 5 people around myself, 10 people around myself that I'm really well connected with, and that I really do appreciate, that I love, right? That I'm sending a gift to on a monthly basis, weekly basis, daily basis, whatever, right? And so out of those, let's go with 10, a random number that I'm throwing out here. There might be 1, 2, 3 people that you might not agree with me on, like where you say those guys are not good guys. I don't like them. There's something happened. To pay attention, because, like, whatever, right? There are a lot of reasons as to why you would not be sending those guys gifts. Now, Just because you think that doesn't necessarily make them bad for me, right? So this is, again, interpretation. It's about, this is true for myself at this very moment. And this is what I believe to be the key to this whole solution, because there are like, what, 7 billion people on this planet right now? And everybody has 5, 10, 15, probably 100. I don't know. Like, this is, again, for each and every one, it's their own particular case, right? But the people that they love and that they are good with each other. Now, if we can prove, and that was the basic hypothesis, can we prove that people are generally good, kind, and generous? Like, if you are good with your 5 people and I'm good with my 5 people, and the closer and more networks that are creating, that are overlapping, I've proven my point. And to me, it's fascinating that within Luxembourg, in my very specific case, what I really do believe, and now I'm going back to the numbers and being more rational about it, like going to like 10,000 people using this app in like short of 6 months, 7 months, potentially like 6.5 months, that tells a story. That's like, okay, no, people actually are good, right? Now it's on me to obviously, and to the team to execute on that and actually making it known that everybody knows about it. But that's a whole different ballpark. But seeing this as a grassroots movement of people actually sharing those gifts and like having 33,000 gifts sent within that 6 months, that's sick. That's like, no, the world is not that bad that I painted it in 2018 when, like, I don't know, like the world was in this very delicate place. We had, well, the things that were going on at the time, right? And so it's great to see that while the other way around still works, and doing this with you, like co-creating this and talking about this and collaborating on different subjects, inviting you to my focus groups while you're inviting me to yours, it just shows me that we are moving into the right direction, and we should not be losing sight of those beautiful moments that we are creating on like probably a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
Absolutely. And I remember very well when and where you presented me the Giftable and Kindness group 3 years ago, I think. And I love the ideas of the beginning, exactly because of what you're just explaining. It's really about proving people that everybody's good. I have this debate with so many people when talking about like the bad people in history or so on, and I always like the debate saying every human being is inherently good. They are very good also at hiding it very often, but they are very good, and because that's where we are coming from. That's also about remembering who we are. Remembering who we are is getting rid of all the bullshit we took on over all the years, and that's the external conditioning and getting rid of it.
But you see, the interesting point is, and I 100% agree with you on that, right? I mean, obviously, because we are having this debate and stuff, but it's not a debate.
It's like a love song.
Yeah, isn't it? But the fun part to me is, I remember very specifically, and to me that was heartbreaking, because you were talking about feelings before, and you want to talk about feelings. Let me give you some feelings. I was talking to, like, by now I'm considering them more friends than idols. We were talking about that before. That I've presented this very specific idea that we are currently proving, right? I've presented that idea, and people shut their doors saying, no, that's not the case. That's disheartening. That's like, oh my God, I was expecting the support from you because you were the one guy or the couple of guys that I was meeting at the time that I'm looking up to, right? Now, being authentic to yourself in that respect is, okay, like you disagree with me? Well, hold my beer. I'll show you differently, right? And so, like, there was this other situation when all of a sudden, like, somebody that was your idol was sort of the guy you are looking up to, saying, no, this is wrong. You have no idea what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. Is all of a sudden probably even poaching people away from your team. Like, probably I haven't done everything wrong, right? Probably all of a sudden you not see that as an attack, but you see it as approval for what you've actually done, right? It's also a way of putting it into perspective and saying, okay, that's fine. Like, it's a liberal market. It's free. You can do whatever, right? But to like, I saw it as acknowledgement that, yeah, I was right, right? Like, done that.
You annoyed him enough so that he he poaches your people. That's great. I had that too. It cost me a lot of money, but I had that too when the largest Luxembourgish incumbent hired every good person I ever hired. It was like we were like the pawns for their sales and their technology department. So then you say great, but it still hurts. Because you have to fill the gaps, and you know that they will come with their big pocket and give it again. But yeah, that's right. Helps. Oh, let me see. So let us restart talking about entrepreneurship and see where we go. Maybe we go back where we are now, but and let's still keep it a little bit in the spiritual reality or faith approach. So say at what moments did you really need to dig very deep into your faith, your own deep trust in yourself, to go on to succeed?
So, well, again, it basically all turns and evolves around the pandemic right now, right? I mean, it's finding yourself in knowing, okay, can I do this, and how can I do this? And in one of the last podcasts that I was on, I literally told the guys that I'm basically betting against myself every single time, and you're doing too, right? Like, we are saying, okay, we can do it, but we do know chances that we are actually failing are way higher than succeeding. Right. I mean, and then at the end of the day, we also need to discuss that in like, how do we define success, right? Because there are definitely things that I would say we definitely succeeded while probably it wasn't fair. But I do think that it also comes down to a deep-rooted willingness to understand or to see that other things are happening around me. Again, it's stoicism. It's also religion to a certain extent, knowing that, okay, maybe I'm not in control of everything, right? Like what happens next depends not only on myself, and it's like, I can be prepared for that, but I can just be prepared to a certain extent, and then ultimately some decisions will not be in my hands. Some steps that might be getting taken are in my hands, but not necessarily only in my hands. Again, it's a team effort. It's not all about this one guy being the ultimate leader, the enlightened, who's going to be bringing this to the end goal, right? That's not the case. So it's really difficult to reply to that question in a more very specific manner. But saying, okay, yeah, we had this COVID situation. I knew we were really on the brink of like not making it, right? And like just literally say, okay, we started this thing 12, like not even 12 months, 6, 7, 8 months later, you have a global pandemic. We could have just said, let's leave it there. Let's wait. Let's see what happens, right? Let's not take the risk of actually working through it. We've taken the risk. We made it out of there, but like we're still bruises on, obviously. I mean, there's not a single company in Europe that doesn't have any bruises based off of that. So yeah, I mean that's yeah.
But that's really, really interesting. And let me ask the question, maybe it's not the same, but maybe differently. So what is it? What made you decide to go on and not say that's fine? Because the easy way out was for sure saying, well, my investors just did what they did and whatever, and now I'm bailing out. Nobody would have shot you down on that because it was the global pandemic. What was it?
Again, to me, really the sense of responsibility, like literally knowing, okay, I hired a team of 8 people. I didn't know that there was at least one baby involved. I didn't know that there were children involved. I didn't know that I had stakeholders that actually put their trust into me. Like what kind of human being, or let's not go with human being. What kind of entrepreneur would I say I'm digging down from that fight? Like again, it's a lot on the mindset as well. Like getting into that growth mindset and saying, okay, it's you just this is the hard thing about the hard things. You need to go get it. You need to keep on going. You need to show that you're able to do it. And if you fail, ultimately that was my easy way out here, right? If we would have failed during the pandemic, we could still have even to this day, we can still say it's to the pandemic, right? Like, because the pandemic is so major, you can always say it's due to the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like there are companies that we've been working with that have been so big you would have never said in a million years those are going to be being closed down, and literally forever during the pandemic that we've been working with. And like obviously that shocks me, right? That's like holy macaroni. Like the end is probably way nearer than you actually realize at that very moment in time, right? Like if they didn't make it, like how am I supposed to get this done, right? And that actually takes you back down to earth as well, saying, okay, this is reality now. Like this was a huge challenge. To me personally, that was, I would say this whole 2020 was the biggest challenge in my entire life thus far. And I'm not only talking about Corona, I'm also talking about the private stuff that we've talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Now, on what values do you base this incredible bold decisions? You talked about responsibility, but I presume there are other ones. Which could they be?
To me, you know, I have this one value that I have not only like it's one of the values that define me, which is loyalty. And when I say loyalty, with loyalty, there comes a lot of other values that I see are subsequently needed in order to be talking about loyalty, right? It's about honesty. It's about trust. It's about, so all those great values that actually can define you as a great human being as well, right? And again, I'm not like this might be completely wrong what I'm currently saying. I'm just saying like this is something that I'm really, really working on and that I'm again shaping myself. And tomorrow morning when I get up, I'm like, okay, so I'm not in Luxembourg right now, but how can I make this day greater that when I'm coming back to Luxembourg, like a week from now, people would say you're a better version of you today than you were a week ago when you left. And I mean, I'm even playing with that, right?
Love it. What are you doing? Tell me. What are your rituals?
Rituals.
Yeah, but these are rituals. If you say that you play with it and you like, I have my rituals to be a better version of myself every day. What are yours?
To me, one of the most important things is, for one, reading a lot on stuff that I don't know anything about or that I really want to like dig deeper. A very interesting topic that I've been interested in now for a couple of months. And let me combine this with something else, but it's symbols. It's understanding where we actually come from, because you're talking about spirituality, right? And like church, or let's call it religion in itself, has been a really defining period for all humanity in history, right? So there is a lot of symbolisms in there that we need to understand in order to understand as to what our coutume are, as to why we are handling the way we are handling things. I mean, it's understanding where we are coming from and combining that also to a certain extent with what I've done during my school time. And I've been there a bit longer than I was supposed to be there, right? As you know. But like my major was sociology, right? And so sociology and how human beings behave in general is something that I'm deeply interested in. One of the things that I love doing, for example, and this comes back to the time even prior to companies and all that, when we were building the hackerspace and using the technology the way we were using it, it's about social engineering. It's about understanding how societies work, how movements actually start, and how you actually like get people motivated to be working on this one same cause, right? And now define a good cause and get people motivated for that. And again, we are making humanity better, or leaving the world in a better condition that we actually found it, right? And so even going to a simple cafe, sitting on the terrace, where right now it's raining outside, so forget about the terrace, but sitting there and just watching people. And sometimes I let my mind wander, and I'm just imagining what's happening to their day for the rest of the day. And like it opens so many creative doors as to what could happen. In that very perspective, this very good friend of mine, he actually suggested to be watching this one Eric Nolan fan, the following, where you have like this one guy following another one, but you have the rule of only following this specific person once and not twice, and then he breaks that rule. And like, well, I'm not going into the plot, but you should watch it. It's a lot of fun. But it helps you let your mind wander, getting creativity going, getting the creative flow also started, and yeah, stuff that I do.
That's passion. That's really, really not weird, not weird. It's really interesting, and I see a lot of conversations we can, we can have. Like, unfortunately, I have a hard stop at 9 because I have to pick up my daughter from friends. But yeah, I totally see this urge to be outside of your business in a sense with what you are reading, with what you're thinking, because it opens up other realms. That's how I see it. I don't know if you can confirm that, but it opens other realms for you. How right is that for you?
Well, again, I would say that within this conversation, it's important to note that I did not go to university. Okay, I'm not the most educated guy that you can find out there. I just have like this atypical way of looking at things and trying to solve problems. Now, why am I saying that? And I had this conversation at home only recently. If I'm looking at my bibliothèque, at all the books that are lying around, you will find a lot of business books, like a lot of business books. Like, because I like remember at the time, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, when we had the first talks, and I was like, yeah, valuation, we know how to do that. I had no idea. Today, I think I kind of grasped the concept. I kind of know what we're talking about, right? And so obviously this is not only due to reading a lot into that, but at some point also figuring out that there are other things besides business. I do believe that I've seen a bit of stuff that's going on, and I do know that now there's a network that we can talk about it and that I can learn from, etc., etc. But I also think that at some point you need to be figuring out like that balance of like, okay, this is business, this is what you're doing on like your daily basis, day to day, whatever. And then you have like this other side where you also need to be, while taking care of yourself to a certain extent as well, right? I haven't been doing sports lately at all, which at some point I need to like get going with. Then you have like the reading part of just getting the mind to go somewhere else where you are not supposed to be. It's the easiest way of getting into the brain of somebody else, right? It's reading what somebody else has written.
Yeah, you know that I didn't go to any university neither, so we are both uneducated bastards here. I love it. and what I see is now I respect everybody who does higher education and who does it well. What I saw in my career over the last 25 years is also all too often people who did higher education think that they don't have to learn anymore because they did it. And I was always graced by the capability of just learning. It's like I will never forget when I created Data Center Luxembourg with Xavier. I said to Xavier, I have no clue what we're doing here. And he said, I know, it's not a problem. You will know. And he was right. So it's like, and then I told our sysadmins where the problems were, because I could have this distance to the problems because they were in the problem. They couldn't have the distance. I could have the distance and say, okay, well, this is not working. That is not working. So it's like, that's a big perspective, and it shapes us, shapes you, it shapes me, because we can deny that now. You can deny it, so you're totally allowed to deny it now. But we always carry this with us. We always carry this like this feeling of, well, we didn't learn so much than the other ones, or so on. So we always have that with us, which makes us being on our toes. Makes us even more interested in what happens around us, and that's amazing. I see that as my biggest one of my many biggest strengths I have.
But you see, it's really, really funny, because it's also like I agree with what you just said, right? And there are two discussions that become very interesting now and intriguing to me as well. One is more on the business side of things, and I would love to dig into that straight afterwards. But the other one is, again, you like, at least for me, that's the case. Not having gone to university and being able to communicate with the people that actually went to university and like having a proper discussion, obviously not in the deepest of details, because then obviously we are all going to get lost. And this is the jumping point to the other one. But it's actually, to me, sort of like a feeling as well, where you say, I'm not worthy yet. I haven't done what the other guys have done in order to get there, which is probably like just this brain fart of mine saying, no, this is what you at some point need to get done, because otherwise you're not worthy of getting even further than what you've done, right? It's like this blocking point. And then I had this conversation only recently with someone who said, no, man, you are missing the point. Like really getting your hands dirty. And I think we know that, right? Getting your hands dirty, getting the experience, that's what it's all about. But still, it's up there in your mind saying, well, you didn't go to Yale, Harvard, didn't go to whatever university, basically. You didn't do it. So it's something that's on the bucket list that we should at some point do. Now, what I wanted to get to as a second point, what you just said, like you were out of the details of that, was another discussion that I recently had with the same guy, by the way, which is, would you rather be like a generalist or a specialist?
You ask me?
Oh yeah. That was an open question to you right now.
Oh, I'm a special generalist.
So, but ultimately, it's a really intriguing question, isn't it? Like, because if you really want to be good at something, you'd rather be a specialist, right?
Yeah, yes and no. I don't see that like that. So now that's interesting, because I asked myself that question for the last 25, 30 years. I love to understand the big pictures. I love to put things together. I am the connector. I am the one who sees connections where nobody sees connections. That's because I'm a generalist. If I am a specialist, I can't. There's a world for specialists, and there is a need for specialists, and there's a need for generalists. Very rarely you can do both. There are some people who are as genius to do both, but there are few. And I'm very, very happy at the space being able to see what others don't see in what can be done together, in how you can link that. I come up with business models. Like that's what one of my, and I actually voluntarily let go of it. We can talk about that if you want, but I voluntarily let go of that, of being like you tell me about an idea, and in half an hour I will create you a business out of it. And that's like, I call that one of my superpowers. Like, and it's one of my very dangerous traits, because I get so excited about it. But then we're coming back to why I do what I do now, is then I get excited about that, but it's not me. It's just the excitement of that. And then I did that for 25 years. And then I do that, great, 6 months, and I get bored like hell. Where's the meaning? What is this? Where's this bringing me? How can I change the world with that? And I can't. But then I'm stuck. All of a sudden, I have companies. I like one moment in time, I had companies all over the world with 50 people working on all continents. Shit, what are you doing now? That's what I mean. So if you have this kind of powers, specialist or generalist, use them always to create from who you are, from what you are, from who you know now who you are. Be true to yourself. What is now what you really need? Because already if we stop lying ourselves about that, and then give us the right answer, we will do something different, something better, and then we'll do something else afterwards, because we grow, and we, as you say, you come from the inside out. I say you come from the outside in. Doesn't matter. It's all a matter of perspective. But you're creating the next thing for you. So now I don't know who will ask questions here.
No. I mean, again,
I was so much train of thought. I could have gone on and said, "Hey, Marco, you have to stop. It's Michel who is I have to ask questions." All right.
No, but that's totally fine. I mean, we said it's a discussion. It's not an interview, right?
I know. I still launched it.
But I really need to. I personally believe that. Like, I'm considering myself a generalist. Just the way you explain it, right? You see the bigger picture. You do understand what the different components are that are needed in order to get there, right? To get this done. But I still feel that, this discussion comes from different angles, right? You have like the one guy that says, yeah, you need to be specialist in order to be creating a company in something. Then you have the other one that says, no, you need to be a generalist because you need to be like able to identify the actual needs in every department in order to like get this vision off the ground, right? And it's really, really confusing to me, because both actually resonate with me. in seeing what the two perspectives are. And while I do know that I'm definitely more of a generalist, because there are so many people out there that are like way smarter than I am, like 100% hands down, sure thing, right? But to say, okay, I can't really deny either one of them, but I do know where I belong, but I want to understand the other part of it as well. And this is like where then all of a sudden you see reflection points coming on, like, okay, but what about this? And then like if we go there, but then there is like this other thing, right? And so this is again the mind just continuously wandering and seeing the world somehow probably even completely different than other people, and understanding the problems that are coming with it. And again, these kind of discussions is literally not what I'm obviously having with everyone, right? Like it would just get at some point even tiring, because it is really going on in here right now, right? It's like, okay, so how can we solve that, right? And so, yeah, I mean, this kind of gets you to the conclusion of what I said before. Like, you have those one friend, those couple of friends where you can really go all out there on everything, understand as to why you're coming with this, what the model is, why you're talking about this. Then you have the other ones where you go to a certain extent, like to 50%, 60%, 70% of knowing everything, talking about sharing everything and not everything whatsoever. And then you have obviously the acquaintances as to, well, we can talk about everything that's currently happening out there, and probably at some point we will, I don't know, go for a drink and we go a bit deeper and a bit deeper and a bit deeper. I need a lot of time in order to be opening up and having this kind of conversation. So obviously now talking to you, it's like we have 7 years of history, 8 years of history to a certain extent, right? That we have been talking to each other, that we've met, etc., etc. And now we're doing this online, which somewhat is awkward, but on the other hand side, it's also really opening up and seeing like what is going to be the reaction later on, where people are sending me text messages like crazy saying, oh my God, dude, you cannot be saying this. I don't know. You know, like those are the kind of thoughts you all of a sudden have. Although it's authentic, it's honest, but you do know people are going to be talking about it.
Yeah, and that comes back to another fear we all have at a certain degree, is what are people talking about and thinking about us? It's something which drives us. It's like, from my perspective, that's why I became an entrepreneur, because I wanted to prove my dear father that I can do it without him, and that I am a great entrepreneur. That's what drove me. Important what people think about you. Why did you become an entrepreneur?
Again, this wasn't really like this flip of a switch one moment. It was just like things needed to get done, and I just like helped getting it done. And I'm literally saying I helped getting it done. I'm not saying I've got it done, right? And now this is again, it's different, because Hackerspace, for example, it was like a whole bunch of people doing it. The last company, we were a whole bunch of people who started it. Then obviously we lost a couple of people on the way. Like they decided to go down another path. Then now with the Kindness Group at the very beginning, I was literally alone in this. Like not alone, I had stakeholders behind me. Like don't get me wrong, but on a day-to-day basis, it was literally every decision that was done on my back, right? And then like there all of a sudden you get another anxiety as well. You're like, okay, like now you're under the watch, right? Like you can never say no, this wasn't me, right? So you try to perfectionate all of it as well. And it helped me also to be way more rigorous the way I was working and the way I was communicating as well. There's this girl, she will know that she's meant if she's on right now, who said to me only a couple of weeks back, she said like I've seen the evolution of your diplomacy throughout the pandemic as well, because obviously you're on the phone like with everybody, right? And you know me. If like you make me angry, I'm just telling you you're making me angry. But if you're pissing me off, I'm telling you you're pissing me off, right? And if I don't like you, I'm telling you I don't like you, because that's who I am. I'm like honest. I'm like, and all of a sudden you learn that there needs to be like a filter. You need to be more politically correct. You need to like dress it up, right? Because that's part of the game as well in the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, it is.
And so I still feel that being authentic also goes in those lines. I mean, you can disagree with something, but the way you are talking about it it's different, right? And you can say stuff, but it's the way you say it that actually makes that makes a difference, right?
Totally. Absolutely. But so many things popping up in my mind now. It's just like I don't know where to go.
I think we need to do a second edition of this.
I think that's what I propose. I have one last question for you. And then I am looking for a studio where we can do that face to face. So I have two options now. Maybe I will do it here. I don't know yet. But let me ask you this question. If anything, what did you learn about yourself tonight?
Oh my, I was talking so much. I don't know. Well, I mean, I'm actually gonna say that I might not, like, I did not learn anything up to now, but once we are closing down the notebook, and I'm going to be reflecting on all the points we actually talked about. So within, like, the first question within the second edition of this, you should ask me, what did you learn last time?
Well, that was a good one to get out of this one. So listen, Michel, that was amazing. Really loved our conversation. Really loved the authenticity we brought on the table. There's so many things we left and we didn't go into, and I know, but I don't know. We just do next one. We just do a reload.
I'm good.
And so thank you again, and thank you to everybody who listened tonight and who will listen at this at the replay afterwards. And thank you.